The gentle strains of classical music filled the dimly lit restaurant, its cozy glow wrapping the evening in a romantic shroud. Angela adjusted her wine glass, her impeccably manicured nails softly tapping the edge as she leaned in. Her eyes locked on Lucas across the table. Lucas's grin broadened, brimming with confidence. His neatly combed dark hair and perfectly tailored suit gave him the commanding presence of a man used to leading, both in the boardroom as the head of marketing and, now, in Angela's heart. Tonight, they were celebrating a secret milestone. 6 months since their illicit affair had begun. Each shared glance, every subtle brush of their fingers over the polished mahogany table, carried the thrill of a love cloaked in secrecy. Angela's eyes gleamed with a mix of mischief and delight as she sipped her wine, savoring not only its depth, but the magnetic pull of Lucas's presence. Their connection had kindled in the monotony of office life. Angela, who had once been all work and no play, couldn't resist Lucas's bold charm. Late-night projects and shared laughs had slowly dissolved the barriers she had put up. Lucas was everything her husband, Samuel, wasn't: spontaneous, daring, and full of life. He made her feel alive in a way she hadn't in years. Samuel. The name arose unbidden, a ghost haunting the fringes of her thoughts. She tried to shove it aside as Lucas's hand brushed hers, sending a shiver up her spine. Lucas was recounting some amusing office anecdote, his smooth voice pulling her back, but her mind kept flickering to the man she'd left behind. Samuel, her husband of 5 steady years, was the foundation of her life. Reliable, kind, and endlessly patient, he had built their future with unwavering dedication. He had always been there, steadfast in his love and sacrifices. But somewhere along the way, the passion, the spark, had dulled, replaced by a predictable routine that now felt stifling. In Lucas's presence, however, Angela rediscovered a long-lost vitality. With him, she felt daring, reckless, an intoxicating whirlwind of emotions. There were no set schedules, no tedious obligations, just the electric rush of stolen moments. Lucas was the antithesis of Samuel, a man who embodied excitement and risk. Tracing the rim of her glass, Angela stole a glance at Lucas, who was laughing heartily. He was everything dangerous and exhilarating, and the secrecy of their entanglement only heightened the allure. As his rich voice continued to weave through the air, Angela's thoughts teetered on the delicate line between her two worlds. Having Samuel's stability and Lucas's unbridled passion felt like the perfect, impossible balance. Angela, Lucas's voice pulled her from her reverie. His hand rested lightly over hers, the warmth of his touch sending a jolt of energy through her. "What's on your mind?" Angela tilted her head, a coy smile playing on her lips. "Just how lucky I am to be here with you tonight," she said softly. Lucas's grin widened as he raised his glass. "Here's to 6 incredible months," he toasted. Angela echoed him, her voice steady, though her heart churned with inner conflict. She was defying every rule she had once cherished, but the exhilaration drowned out her guilt. She wanted it all: the safety of Samuel and the adrenaline rush Lucas offered. Life was too short for half measures. Lucas leaned forward, his fingers curling around hers. His dark eyes glinted with playful mischief. "Are you overthinking again, Angela? Or is Samuel on your mind?" he asked, his tone teasing. Angela let out a soft laugh, shaking her head. "Samuel? He's fine, just like any other husband. He's been a bit tense lately, but I'm sure he doesn't suspect anything." Her lips curled into a wry smile. "He doesn't need to know about my extracurricular activities." Lucas arched an eyebrow, intrigued. "Tense? What's got him so worked up?" Angela hesitated, swirling her wine thoughtfully. "He's been visiting his parents' ranch recently. His father's health is failing, and Samuel's feeling guilty for not going sooner. It's been weighing on him." Lucas leaned back in his chair, his grin widening. "A ranch? So your husband's a country boy? Never would have guessed." Angela chuckled, a faint blush dusting her cheeks. "Not quite. Samuel's too mild-mannered to fit the cowboy image." Lucas smirked, his tone turning sly. A real man should know how to love with passion, take risks, and embrace adventure. Not some gray worm. His words lingered provocatively before he added with a wicked grin. Now me? I'm a real man. And after dinner, I'll prove it with a love race. Angela's cheeks flushed as she laughed at his audaciousness. She tilted her head flirtatiously, her voice dropping into a playful tone. A love race? What does that even mean? Lucas leaned closer, his lips just a breath away. Let's just say it's not for the faint-hearted. Trust me. Angela was ready with a teasing reply when their moment was interrupted by the arrival of the waiter, who placed 2 covered desserts on the table. Excuse me, Angela said, frowning slightly. We didn't order dessert. The waiter smiled, hands clasped behind his back. It's a gift. Angela turned to Lucas, her eyes gleaming with curiosity and suspicion. Is this one of your surprises? Lucas leaned back, a smug smile on his lips. I love surprises, but dessert? That's way too small time for me. The waiter chuckled before leaving, and Angela's earlier tension melted into a laugh. Maybe the universe is sending us a little approval for our arrangement, she said, her tone light. Lucas raised his glass, his grin confident. 2 signs from the universe. Their laughter mingled with the restaurant's gentle hum, sealing the moment in carefree indulgence. The moment felt almost unreal, too perfect, as though their forbidden romance wasn't just hidden, but somehow condoned by the universe itself. The mood at their table shifted abruptly when Lucas reached out to uncover his dessert. With a dramatic flourish, he lifted the lid, revealing a sleek chocolate cake adorned with glossy icing. Jutting out from the center, like a deliberate mockery, was a joker playing card. Lucas's brow furrowed as he tilted his head, a wry smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. What the hell is this? He muttered, plucking the card from the cake. What kind of lame joke is this supposed to be? Angela, seated across from him, felt her chest tighten with unease. The sight of the card sent a ripple of dread through her. Her fingers drummed restlessly against the table as she hesitantly reached for her own dessert. Slowly, almost cautiously, she lifted the lid. Beneath it was another chocolate cake. But this one had something more, something that glinted ominously under the restaurant's soft light. Perched atop the cake, a cherry was skewered by a ring. Angela's breath caught as her mind raced to connect the dots. For a fleeting second, she thought it might be a romantic gesture. Lucas, she said with a nervous laugh, holding the cake closer. Are you wait. Her voice faltered as realization dawned. Her heart dropped, and her eyes widened in horror. Lucas, this is Samuel's wedding ring. Panic surged through her, the walls of the restaurant seeming to close in around her. Her hands trembled, and her mind spun as she tried to process what she was seeing. How was Samuel's ring here? In this place? In this moment? Her thoughts spiraled into chaos, each possibility darker than the last. She stared at Lucas for some kind of reaction, but he seemed more annoyed than concerned. He leaned back, jaw tightening, as if the bizarre turn of events was merely a minor inconvenience. The uncomfortable silence between them was broken by the arrival of a shadow that loomed over their table. A man dressed in a sharp, impeccably tailored suit slid into an empty chair without invitation. His air of authority was palpable, his movements deliberate and precise, exuding the cool control of someone who always held the upper hand. His piercing gaze swept over them, calm yet unerringly focused. Angela and Lucas exchanged bewildered glances, but said nothing. "Good evening," the man began, his tone even and measured. "I won't take much of your time." Lucas, true to his brash nature, leaned forward, his expression hardening. "What the hell is this? Who are you? And what's with this twisted stunt? You trying to cause trouble?" Unfazed, the man offered a faint smile. "My name is Oliver," he said with unnerving composure, "and I suggest you remain calm. Aggression won't be necessary." From his jacket, Oliver retrieved a slim leather folder and handed it to Angela. "Before you open this," he said, "I have a proposal for Mr. Lucas here." His attention shifted to the joker card still clutched in Lucas's hand. "I understand you're a man who enjoys a gamble," Oliver said smoothly. Lucas narrowed his eyes, suspicion flickering in his gaze. What's your game? And how do you know anything about me? Oliver's faint smile didn't waver. My client has a straightforward request, a wager. $50,000. If you accept, you can leave here tonight with no further consequences. Lucas's laugh erupted, loud and brass, drawing curious glances from nearby tables. Are you serious? What's next? You want me to strip and dance for the crowd too? This is ridiculous. Who's behind this circus? Samuel? He's your client, isn't he? Oliver inclined his head slightly, confirming Lucas's suspicion. Meanwhile, Angela fumbled with the folder Oliver had handed her. When she opened it, a sharp gasp escaped her lips. Inside were divorce papers signed and ready to be filed. No, this can't be real, she stammered, her voice trembling. How is this even possible? What is this? Lucas glanced at the papers, a smug grin spreading across his face. Leaning back in his chair, he waved a dismissive hand. Angela, babe, he drawled, his voice dripping with mockery. It looks like your little Samuel finally grew a backbone. So what? Let him do his thing. Honestly, it's about time you let that boring puppy go. Angela's voice cracked as she tried to find her footing in the storm of emotions. Lucas, you don't understand. Samuel and we have financial entanglements. This isn't just about a divorce. It's a mess. And now he's done this completely out of the blue. Lucas shrugged, still exuding his infuriating bravado. Relax, Angela. We'll get a good lawyer. Your precious Samuel will be groveling before this is over. He gestured dismissively at Oliver. And as for tonight's drama, I'll deal with him myself. He needs to know his place. Oliver's expression didn't waver. So you're refusing my offer? He asked, his voice calm, though tinged with weariness. Damn right. I'm refusing, Lucas snapped, his voice rising enough to draw more curious stares. Nobody tells me what to do, especially not some small-town redneck. Oliver sighed softly, rising with practiced grace. Very well. I'll leave you to your evening. But, Angela, I believe you'll find a surprise waiting for you at home. His words were polite, but the undertone carried a chilling finality. Good night. He turned and walked away, the soft click of his polished shoes echoing in the restaurant. Angela stared after him, her breathing shallow, the word surprise reverberating ominously in her mind. Turning to Lucas, she whispered, her voice laced with fear. He said there's a surprise at home. I need to go. Now. Lucas leaned back, his infuriating grin steady. Relax, he said, reaching for her hand. I'll go with you. Whatever this nonsense is, I'll handle it. Trust me, I've got this. Angela remained silent, her thoughts a swirling storm of fear and confusion. Lucas signaled for the waiter, paid the bill with a flourish, and helped Angela into her coat. Let's go, he said breezily. The drive to her home was thick with tension. While Lucas hummed along to the radio, completely at ease, Angela stared blankly out the window, her mind racing. Her gut told her something terrible was waiting for her. What if Samuel's there? She murmured, her voice barely audible. Lucas laughed, flashing a cocky smile. That's even better, Lucas scoffed, his tone laced with disdain. I'll have a word with him. Put him in his place. Angela swallowed hard, a tear escaping down her cheek. Her voice trembled as she whispered, maybe we shouldn't go. This has gone too far. I never wanted. Lucas cut her off, his tone light and dismissive. Oh, come on, Angela. If Samuel's already got the divorce papers ready to go, then what difference does it make now? He's the one pushing for this. It's time he learned the consequences of his actions. I'll handle it. Despite his bravado, Angela couldn't ignore the growing knot of dread in her stomach. As they turned onto her street, her heart sank. The lights in her house were on, casting an eerie glow through the windows. It felt less like a welcome and more like a warning. Lucas parked the car with his usual exaggerated confidence. Let's get this over with, he said, stepping out as though he owned the situation. Angela followed reluctantly, her feet dragging as though her anxiety physically weighed her down. She could feel it in her bones. Whatever waited inside wasn't going to end well. They stepped into the house, the silence thick and heavy. Angela flicked the light switch, illuminating a quiet, seemingly empty home. Her eyes darted around, half expecting Samuel to emerge from the shadows. But he was nowhere to be seen. Her chest tightened when she noticed something else. Most of Samuel's belongings were gone. Lucas chuckled, walking into the living room with his typical swagger. "See? I told you he's a coward." Ran off with his tail between his legs. He leaned against the kitchen counter with a smirk. Papa went crying back to Mommy and Daddy on that little ranch of his. Angela ignored Lucas's taunt, her unease growing as she scanned the room. Something felt off, too deliberate. Her gaze landed on the kitchen table, where a sleek black folder sat ominously. A shiver ran down her spine as she approached it. Flipping it open, she gasped. Inside was a handwritten note from Samuel. "Darling, I know all about your double life. I've been collecting evidence for months. Divorce is the only solution for your sins, and you'll walk away with nothing but the consequences. Oh, and take a closer look in this folder for some truths about your lover." Angela's breath quickened as she turned to the next set of documents. Her hands shook as she pulled out photographs and printouts. Images of Lucas with other women. One showed him dining with a woman at a restaurant. Another captured him meeting someone in a hotel lobby, her hand resting possessively on his arm. Yet another depicted him leaning close to a third woman at a bar, his expression flirtatious. Tears welled in Angela's eyes as she shoved the photos toward Lucas. "What is this, Lucas?" she demanded, her voice cracking. "Are you seeing other women?" Lucas's expression hardened for a split second before softening into a defensive smirk. This is a joke." He leaned closer, pointing at one of the photos. "Look at this one. It's obviously doctored. That woman? She's a former client, a contractor I worked with ages ago." His voice picked up speed as he gestured to another image. "And this one? That's a friend from college. We caught up for coffee. That's all. These are harmless moments, Angela. Conversations. Samuel's trying to twist them into something they're not." Angela sniffled, her tears slowing as she tried to absorb his words. "So, you're saying this is all just a misunderstanding?" Lucas placed his hands firmly on her shoulders, meeting her gaze with intensity. "Absolutely. These photos are designed to mess with your head. It's all part of Samuel's little game to break us apart. Think about it. Do you see me kissing anyone in these pictures? No, because they're fake." He leaned in closer, his tone soothing. "Angela, you can't let him manipulate you like this." Her doubts began to waver under Lucas's reassurances, and she nodded hesitantly. But Lucas's mind was racing. He masked his panic with smooth words, concocting excuses to explain away the damning photos. He couldn't let her question him now, not when Samuel was clearly trying to unravel everything. Angela's attention turned back to the folder, her blood running cold as she read another note. "Tell Lucas he can make this go away with a $100,000 donation to my account. It'll clear his conscience and let him breathe a little easier." Lucas's face contorted with fury as he read it. Grabbing the papers, he ripped them apart in a fit of rage. "This is insane," he roared. $100,000? What does he think this is, a mafia shakedown?" Shreds of paper fluttered to the ground as Lucas tore through the folder's contents. "I'll tell you what's going to happen," he growled. "Tomorrow, I'm hiring the best damn lawyer in the city. We'll rip Samuel apart in court, just like I'm ripping up these papers. This ends now." Angela watched him, her emotions a chaotic swirl of fear and hope. Lucas's fiery determination momentarily soothed her nerves. Despite everything, she clung to the belief that Lucas wouldn't abandon her when things got tough. As he dumped the shredded remains into the trash, Lucas turned to her, his tone firm. "We're not letting him win, Angela. Trust me, I've got this." Angela nodded slowly, wiping away her tears. Lucas's unwavering confidence was infectious, giving her a sliver of hope that they could face whatever came next together. The tension eased slightly as Lucas poured 2 glasses of whiskey, sliding one across the table to Angela. "Here," he said, his voice smooth and calming. "This will help." Angela took the glass hesitantly, still reeling from the night's events. Lucas leaned in, his gaze locking onto hers. "Angela," he said softly, "it's time we stop letting Samuel control our lives. This is your house now without him. Let's make a new start, right in that bedroom of yours. His voice dropped, dripping with confidence. The one he probably spent months sulking in while you were with me. Angela blinked, startled. Lucas, I don't know. This feels wrong. Wrong. Lucas grinned, his charisma as overpowering as ever. No, this is victory. It's us proving he doesn't own you anymore. Trust me, you'll thank me for this. His words, tone, and relentless charm slowly chipped away at her resistance. Eventually, she gave in. Lucas swept her into his arms, carrying her to the master bedroom. By morning, Lucas was already dressed sharply for work, fixing his tie as he spoke. Don't worry about a thing, babe, he said confidently. I'll cover for you at the office. Tell them you're sick. Take a couple of days to breathe, Lucas said as he straightened his tie. I'll focus on finding a lawyer and start piecing together a plan to take your bastard husband down. Angela nodded, still groggy from the tumultuous night before. Lucas kissed her cheek and headed out, leaving her alone in the house as an oppressive silence settled around her. She stared out the window, the steam from her coffee dissipating as the cup grew cold in her hands. Maybe this is for the best, she murmured aloud, trying to convince herself. To hell with Samuel. I'll build a new life now. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her spiraling thoughts. She glanced at the screen, an alert from her bank. Your account has been frozen. Panic seized her chest as she scrambled to log into her banking app. A few frantic taps later, her fears were confirmed. The joint savings account had been emptied. Completely. Angela's pulse quickened. She knew who was behind this. Samuel had transferred every penny into accounts she couldn't access. She immediately dialed his number, the call going straight to voicemail. Frustration and desperation mounted with every passing second. Finally, her phone rang, and she answered without hesitation. Samuel, she snapped, a mix of anger and fear in her voice. What did you do? You froze my account and took all the money. You're a coward, hiding behind lawyers and bank notifications. We need to talk about this now, or I'm going to. Samuel's calm but cutting voice interrupted her. Angela, you made your decision. You'll get all the explanations you need in court. Until then, there's nothing left to discuss. You can't just, Angela, he interjected, his tone firm and final. I'm done listening to your excuses. You didn't even bother to call me last night. Any questions you have can go through my lawyer. Before she could respond, the line went dead. Angela stared at the screen, trembling with a mix of fury and fear. Needing comfort and direction, she called Lucas. After a few rings, he answered, his tone unusually curt. Lucas, she began, her voice cracking. Samuel froze my account and drained the savings. He took everything. Lucas sighed heavily, his words clipped. Angela, we got a bigger problem. Her stomach dropped. What now? She whispered, her voice breaking. Samuel's a sneaky bastard, Lucas growled. He went to our bosses and told them everything about us, the affair. Angela gasped, her breath catching in her throat. What? What did you tell them? I spun in as best I could, Lucas said, his frustration palpable. I told them Samuel's losing his mind over the divorce and is lashing out, trying to ruin us both. Thankfully, the boss values me enough to give me some leeway. But this mess needs to be cleaned up fast. What do we do now? Angela asked, clutching her phone with trembling hands. Lucas's tone shifted, sharp and commanding. I'm finding a lawyer and calling in favors from some influential friends. We'll turn this around. But I need something from you. Samuel's number. I need to talk to him. Man to man. Angela hesitated. Giving Samuel's number felt like crossing another line. But Lucas's confidence steadied her fraying nerves. Okay, she murmured, reciting the digits. Good, Lucas said, his voice softening. Don't worry, Angela. I'll handle this. When the call ended, Angela felt hollow but clung to the hope that Lucas could fix everything. Lucas, meanwhile, paced his office, seething as he dialed Samuel's number. When a line connected and Samuel answered, Lucas launched straight into his tirade. Listen, you little punk, Lucas growled, his voice low and menacing. You started a war you can't win. You've crossed every line, and now it's personal. A vendetta. Samuel's silence on the other end only fueled Lucas's anger. I'm giving you one chance, Lucas snarled. Divorce Angela the normal way, no tricks, no games. And while you're at it, explain to my bosses that your accusations were baseless. Admit you've been acting out of jealousy and spite. Fix this, or you'll regret it. Samuel's faint chuckle came through the line, calm and mocking. Is that all, Lucas? He said smoothly. Because I already offered you a way out, a charitable donation to compensate for the damage you caused to my marriage. Angela made her choices, and so did you. But it's your arrogance, Lucas, that really got under my skin. Lucas gritted his teeth, barely containing his rage. You think this is funny? You're playing a dangerous game. Samuel. Samuel's voice remained calm, but his words carried a chilling finality. Here's my last offer. Contribute $200,000 to my account. Think of it as a way to ease your conscience. Otherwise, Lucas, brace yourself for the consequences. Lucas's temper erupted. You think I'm going to roll over and give you that kind of money? Who the hell do you think you are? I'll crush you like the insignificant little worm you are. I've got friends, real ones, powerful ones. I'll bring in the best lawyer money can buy, and you'll wish you never messed with me. Samuel's voice didn't waver. Try it, he said coldly. But mark my words, you'll pay for every choice you've made. The bets are set, Lucas. Goodbye. The line went dead before Lucas could respond. He slammed the phone onto his desk, muttering curses under his breath. That smug bastard, he spat. He thinks he can play me. But deep down, a nagging voice whispered doubts he refused to acknowledge. For the first time in years, Lucas felt a twinge of uncertainty. The first day of the divorce trial was a nightmare. Samuel's lawyer presented a damning collection of evidence. Photographs, text messages, and detailed timelines of Angela's meetings with Lucas. Each piece painted a vivid and irrefutable picture of betrayal. Angela's lawyer, a sharp-tongued man with a knack for stalling, stood to object. Your Honor, he said smoothly, I move to delay the admission of this evidence until its authenticity can be verified. These materials need thorough verification. Your Honor, Angela's lawyer argued smoothly. We cannot allow unverified evidence to unfairly influence these proceedings. It was a clever tactic, stalling the inevitable and buying precious time for Angela and Lucas. From his seat in the gallery, Lucas smirked, silently approving the strategy. Tom was exactly what he needed, to pressure Samuel and use his network to make this entire mess disappear. When the hearing adjourned, the judge scheduled the next session for later in the month. Angela looked visibly shaken, but Lucas leaned in with his usual bravado. Don't worry, babe. We got this. Just give me a few more days, and I'll make sure Samuel regrets ever crossing us. Later, as Lucas racked up a series of frantic calls to his contacts, his phone buzzed. The name on the screen sent a chill down his spine. Boss. Lucas, came the curt voice on the other end. I need you in my office immediately. The line went dead before Lucas could respond. The tone of that call left no room for misinterpretation. Trouble was brewing, and this time his charm might not be enough. Lucas entered the office, his confidence shaken, but not entirely gone. His boss, a sharp-eyed man known for his no-nonsense demeanor, gestured for him to sit. Lucas, he began coldly, let me be frank. Given the scandal with Angela, I should have fired both of you on the spot. But I decided to believe your explanation. For now, Lucas leaned forward, eager to defend himself. Sir, Angela is my subordinate. I couldn't abandon her while her husband is clearly unhinged. The court hearings will settle everything, and this will blow over. The boss frowned, tapping his fingers on the desk. This isn't about your personal drama, Lucas. It's about something much bigger. I've received troubling information. Lucas stiffened, his stomach tightening. What kind of information? The boss leaned back, his gaze piercing. Fraud. It seems you've been mismanaging the company's advertising budget, funneling money into shell companies and pocketing the difference. The evidence is extensive. Lucas's mouth went dry. That's absurd. I would never. The boss raised a hand, silencing him. Pressing a button on his desk, he summoned security. Moments later, The head of security entered alongside a man in a crisp suit. "This is a friend of mine," the boss said, gesturing to the newcomer. "He works with the Department for the Investigation of Financial and Economic Crimes. For now, this investigation is unofficial, but we're going to verify everything. If the accusations are true, you're looking at fines, possibly prison." Lucas stammered, his confidence cracking. This is a setup. Someone's trying to ruin me." The boss tilted his head, scrutinizing him. "By the way, Lucas, do you play poker?" Lucas froze, caught off guard. "And no, I mean occasionally for fun." The boss slid a folder across the desk. Inside were photos of Lucas at poker tables in dingy backrooms, surrounded by shady characters. "People say you win big sometimes," the boss said, his voice icy. "And other times, you lose even bigger." Lucas's face turned pale. This isn't what it looks like. "It's harmless." "Harmless," the boss repeated, his expression hard. "You put this company's reputation on the line. From this moment forward, every move you make will be under scrutiny." Escorted by security, Lucas left the office, his mind racing. Back in his own office, he collapsed into his chair, clutching his head. His phone buzzed, breaking his thoughts. It was a message from Samuel. "Merry Christmas, Mr. Confidence." Lucas slammed his phone onto the desk, his frustration boiling over. Moments later, it buzzed again. This time a call from Angela. "Lucas," she began, her voice trembling. "Can we meet for dinner? We need to come up with a plan." Lucas, his patience worn thin, snapped. "I'm not solving your problems, Angela. Figure it out yourself. Why the hell did you drag me into your mess?" "Lucas, please, I have bigger things to deal with. Bye." He hung up and, without hesitation, blocked her number. Angela sat on the edge of her bed, her face buried in her hands, tears streaming down her cheeks. The weight of her decisions crushed her. She had lost everything: Samuel, Lucas, and the life she once took for granted. Days later, Angela received devastating news. She was fired. Her boss cited the public scandal, explaining the company couldn't afford the reputational damage. On the same day, she learned Lucas was under formal investigation for financial fraud. Her divorce case concluded swiftly. Samuel's overwhelming evidence ensured she walked away with nothing. Not assets, not support, only mounting legal fees. Forced to take out loans, Angela faced a bleak reality. Her new job paid a modest salary, and her tasks were monotonous. Each day reminded her of how far she had fallen. Every night, she cried herself to sleep. Lucas, once the picture of confidence, now sat in a cramped, dingy apartment. His lawyer warned him the fines were just the beginning. Jail time loomed. He stared at the mountain of evidence Samuel had collected, knowing his schemes were exposed. The investigation into his shell companies and embezzlement was thorough, leaving no room for doubt. Samuel had outmaneuvered him, and Lucas knew it. Rage burned within him, but there was nothing he could do. Meanwhile, Samuel sat in the quiet comfort of his parents' ranch. The weight of betrayal finally lifted. The private investigator he'd hired had been worth every penny, unearthing truths about both Angela and Lucas. It had been costly, but for Samuel, reclaiming his dignity and peace of mind was priceless. Now, free from the chaos of his marriage, Samuel focused on what truly mattered: family and rebuilding his life. He felt no need to gloat. He had already won. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Samuel smiled softly. He was ready to leave the past behind and start anew.